Hey y'all, it's your favorite cozy girl, Chi the Reality Queen, and I am back again with another episode of Robe Chronicles. Today we will be talking about Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 14. And let's get into it. So, this episode starts off with Jasmine talking about how she's not trying to put her guard up, and she is trying to leave that opening for Eris. And honestly, I think that she knows better than us. Like, we're just watching the shows as viewers, and so she knows herself better than us, and she knows that if she allows herself to give Eris that opening to get to know him, right, and be able to start to talk to him like on a deeper level, that she'll fall for him. And I feel like she doesn't want to do that because she already knows he doesn't like her. Like, not like as a person. Like, I think he likes her as a person and she knows that, but just not as a lover. And I think that's where her problem lies. And she doesn't want to fall in love with somebody who has already told her in so many words, I'm not attracted to you, and it'll never be. So I kind of agree with her. I know that we're watching those shows and we're like, okay, well, like, put in a little effort, but it was a little bit much. So I kind of understand where she's at. Chris and Nicole install a bidet, and I know this might sound shady as hell, but Chris reminds me of all those Reddit stories that I read where girls date somebody or marry somebody and they found out that they're like filthy, they don't wipe their ass, or they don't do this, they don't brush their teeth. And for some reason, Chris reminds me of those stories. So like when she said, oh, let's install a bidet, it's almost like, is it because you don't think he's wiping his, or what is it? You know, I'm not, like, I don't know. He might be very clean. I'm not saying he isn't clean. I don't know this man from anywhere. I'm just saying that he kind of reminds me of those Reddit stories that you hear. And then her wanting to install a bidet then kind of made me go, maybe. But this episode, Dr. Pia came to talk to the couples, and I love her, love Dr. Pia, because she be asking the questions and getting to the crux of the matters, okay? Not the crust, but she be, talking about the things and asking the questions that really need to be asked that I don't think the couples are exactly ready for. So the first couple she talked to was like Gina and Clint, and Gina was like, oh, we don't really have a physical relationship, but we're working on our emotional relationship and building a friendship. And honestly, I just find Gina to be so blah. Like, I'm so disappointed in who I thought she was and who she is and who she has been. I'm just disappointed in her character arc. Like, ugh, so boring. But it's like, girl, this is married at first sight, not friendship at first sight. Like, why are you trying to build a friendship in 8 weeks? You need to be building a marriage. And so Dr. Pia is like forcing them to answer the tough questions. Basically, like, why aren't you guys talking about sex? Like, to actually have a physical sexual relationship, you do have to talk about it. And you guys aren't talking about it. You guys are like avoiding it. And Gina's like, well, I don't want to do that, or I'm uncomfortable, or this and that. And I guess it's just annoying to me because I feel like I wouldn't want to go on Married at First Sight, because there are things to me that I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that on television, or I wouldn't want to do that. And so I wouldn't be a good candidate in my mind, right? Maybe I'd get there and do a little something strange for a little change. But, in my mind, I don't think I would be a good candidate because I wouldn't want to do certain things. But if you know that about yourself, then why are you here, right? Because it's very clear. This show has had 15 seasons prior to you showing up. So you shouldn't be confused on how it's going to go and what's going to happen. And I just find Gina now to be very bossy and annoying and just insufferable. And Clint, oh God, Clint is not perfect. So this rant isn't to be like Gina's this and Clint is that, but it's like Clint is trying, and maybe Clint might decide, I don't want to do this. But he's like, hey, if we got to put on a show for the next 6 weeks to kind of get through because we decided to stay, unlike Dominique, which now I feel like every Reddit post, blog, Twitter, who was insulting her needs to go call that girl up and apologize, because y'all was talking so much mess, talking about she's 25, she wasn't ready, she didn't know what she was doing, when in reality, she's the only person that apparently knew what she was doing. Because why am I going to drag y'all along and myself along for the next 8 weeks when I know this is not what I want? Whereas Gina and Clint are perfectly fine doing that. Eris and Jasmine are perfectly fine doing that. And Shaq is now perfectly fine doing that. Like, why are you dragging us along? Dominique, the 25-year-old who y'all called so immature, was like, no, I'm not going to fake. I'm not going to do that. And she left. So you guys owe her an apology. I stood 10 toes on Dominique. I stood by her. Now, she did some foolish things. And yes, she was 25. And yes, her mom applied for her. But at least she was like, yeah, nope, not going to do this. All these other people know very well they do not like the person that they're with. And they just dragging it. I'm not a fan of that at all. Like, I don't think that's what this show is meant for. What else? Gina then says that Clint has no swag. And it's so funny because I've noticed that Gina says things about Clint that to any normal person probably shouldn't be like a big deal. But I feel the way Clint's ego is set up, all of the stuff that she says ends up being a big deal. Like, having no swag, I mean, yeah, it's a little offensive, but maybe it shouldn't be a big deal. Or being called ginger, or saying you're not attracted to gingery features, also maybe shouldn't be a big deal. But because these are things that are big deals to Clint, like him thinking he's the king of swag, it's like, girl, you trying to offend me. I don't know why, but I mean, Clint just seems very plain. So that the fact that he said he has swag, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. But that offended him, you know? And later on, she mentions it's because he needs like a haircut and she should cut his hair. And to me, I'm like, girl, I think they should literally like have a gag order on her mentioning her job, because I don't think I've watched a season more where someone talks more about what they do. Like, girl, I'm tired. I don't care that you do hair, and I hope your business fails, because why are you mentioning it every second? Because you're trying to sell it on here. That's why you're still here. You're still here because you're trying to sell it. That's why your hairdressers are coming to do dinner. That's why you're doing all this. That's why you're still here, because you want to mention your hair salon every chance you get and get people there. I'm sure business is booming. I'm sure it is. But it's like, girl, stop. Yeah. Anyways, I feel like, oopsie, sorry, got mixed up in my notes. I think that when Dr. Pia goes and talks to Jasmine and Eris, it's kind of sad, because she's like, okay, Jasmine, do you feel like you're getting your needs met? And Jasmine immediately said no. But here's the thing. Jasmine doesn't then go on to explain what those needs are. Or maybe she did and we didn't see it. But I think she needs to be more clear in what she needs from Eris. But again, I think she's afraid. And Jasmine says, well, I was friend-zoned on the honeymoon. So, I mean, I'm sure the girls, they haven't shown it, but I'm sure the girls told her that Eris said she was a 4. Like, that is tough, right? I don't care. Even if you think you're the baddest bee, hearing that your husband thinks you're a 4 on a scale of 10, not 4 to 5, like a scale of 5, on a scale of 10, it's kind of tough. I wouldn't want to hear it. I would not want to hear it. So I know she's been feeling really down. And then when she's kind of saying these things, Dr. P is like, well, Eris, how does that make you feel? And Eris is like, well, I like it. She needs to tell me and put me in my place and da-da-da-da-da. Is this a kink, sir? You like being told what to do and being put in your place? And I don't know. But I don't know. I just feel like Eris, he's a little all over the place. He was honest with her, so I can't fault him for that. But I just think, again, you're coming on a show where you could potentially marry a stranger. That stranger could potentially be ugly. If you know that's not a risk that you're willing to take, don't come on a show like this. I don't know. I just feel like options are here. But yeah. Okay, now onto my girl Kirsten, because you know that's my girl. I think that she's being a really good wife. I think she is doing exactly what we all wanted Alyssa to do in her season, to be like, okay, maybe I'm not attracted to this guy, but he's a nice guy, or we think he's a nice guy, because I think Shaq is terrible, but we think he's a nice guy. Let me just put forward an effort, and maybe if I keep putting forward this effort, I will fall for him. And I think that's kind of what's happening to Kirsten a little bit. She is starting to like him because she is putting that effort in to like him. And I just feel like Shaq is actually going out of his way now to be extremely rude to Kirsten. Like, they were on a FaceTime call because he had to travel for work. And at the end of the call, she tried to like blow him a kiss or whatever, but he hung up. And when she called him back to mention, he could have been like, oh, I'm so sorry, babe. Like, I didn't realize. He was like, well, I didn't realize that you were trying to do that. Okay, sassy pants. What's going on here? Like, he is just, I don't know. I'm just not a fan of him anymore. Shaq started like way up here. Actually, he was kind of here because I felt like he thought Kirsten was so pretty and was like giving her too much grace. But now he's just rude and nasty. And I'm just like, ugh, ugh. Every episode is like, notch, 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 notch. Like, I'm sure I've seen the comments. People are like, oh, Shaq is such a handsome, good man. Kirsten doesn't know what she's missing. You date him then. I don't know. When this is done and they say no, you find him, you date him. He seems terrible to me. I think that Nicole is very aware of herself. Like, I know Nicole talks about her past relationships and the problems she had and all that stuff, but I think she talks about it in a place of really good awareness, of understanding the damage some of those things have done to her, and where she's at and how she's working on it, and where it lies in her mind, right? Like, how it builds anxiety and how it helps her, makes her so she can't get over certain things or feels a certain way about certain things. And you know, I kind of like that about her. She's like, Nicole, I liked her from the beginning, but now she's definitely like tipping to the top, the way Shaq is tipping down to the bottom. And the fact that Dr. Pierre immediately was like, don't say those things about yourself, like, you know, but I just feel like, I'm not saying that Nicole should say those things, but I'm just saying that Nicole is just super aware of her faults and her problems, and it's almost to the point where it's probably going to start bordering on a negative, right? Because it's like, okay, we know you have those problems, you know you have those problems, let's work on them instead of continuously addressing them. Like addressing them as a talking points rather than just correcting where you fail, right? So, but I like her and I like where she's going. And I hope she kind of dials it back and kind of like gets it into a good place. And I think that conversation with Dr. Pia, it was actually helpful. Like, I actually find Dr. Pia to be a helpful expert. Like, whereas Pastor Cal and Dr. Pepper, I don't know what's in their contracts, but when they talk to these couples, they're like, yes, your husband says he hates you, but have you ever tried being less hateable? And that's the type of expert advice they give. And I'm just like, why are you doing these people like that? Like, you're not helping them. These people are in situations like, especially with like Michaela and Zach, like, well, Pastor Cal eventually got fed up with Zach, but it's like, this man is gaslighting her. Like, literally, you're the only woman that has ever made me feel this way, but I will not be with you because I don't like you. Like, why are you crying and doing all this stuff for me? And it's like, they were given advice initially that was like, well, just see it through and this and that and couples this and couples that. Whereas Dr. Pia is more like, okay, get to this, get to that. The only thing I didn't like about Dr. Pia's conversation with Chris and Nicole is we didn't really expose or discuss Chris's issues because they were so focused on Nicole's. And I feel, again, this is my feeling that I have as your guys' content YouTube creator on this topic, is that they have an agenda of how they want people to look, right? Like, there are people who they want them to look away. There are people that look away because that's who they are. And there's people that they don't want to look a certain way, even though they're a certain way. And I feel like that's how it is with Chris. Like they want Chris to be that really good guy. I'm not saying that he's not, but anything that could kind of make you think that he's not that really, really good guy, they don't want to focus on that. That's just how I feel. Eris then admits later when he's in a conversation with Jasmine that he only clapped for her because Pastor Cal told him to. And I think, although it's so sad and horrible, and I hate that for her, it does explain the fact that people were so confused. Like everybody was like, oh, he thought she was so fine. Now he thinks she's ugly. Well, if you were told to clap by Pastor Cal, then it makes sense why you clapped, right? And now you're saying she's not attractive. You clapped because you felt like you had to. It was awkward. This is what you did. But it wasn't really how you felt. Which kind of, like I said, it's mean, it's terrible, it is bad, but it does kind of explain what happened with Eris. It's funny, speaking of Eris and Jasmine and their wedding, is it reminds me that Shaq is, and I think I said this before, but Shaq is who Felina or Fal thought Jasmine was. Someone who's very calculated with their responses and answers and says stuff a certain way to make themselves sound good, even though that's not really who they are. Like Shaq, I think, is a horrible person, but he's really good speaking. Well, horrible person in this relationship. I don't know who he is outside, but horrible in this relationship. And I feel like he does a really good job of saying things to make it sound like Kirsten is the problem. Like even when they were having that conversation at the table, I think it was last episode, and she was eating a salad and he kept on saying, stop talking to me while your mouth is full. But he kept on asking her questions and talking to her. And it's like, you don't want her to answer because her mouth is full, but you keep asking questions knowing that she's going to want to defend herself or answer while she's eating, despite her saying, I don't even want to have this conversation. It's just really gaslighty. I'm not a fan, not a fan. But it was funny. So when Dr. Pia was talking to Shaq and Kirsten, she asks, Kirsten, do you think Shaq is masculine? Because she's talking about all the things of her father and how she was really masculine and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And Kirsten takes like, it might not have been that long, but it felt like such an awkward, like 3 minutes of her going, and then she looks at him and she looks back and she looks at him again and she goes, yeah. And it's like, girl, you know, and I know, and everybody watching knows Shaq is not masculine. That's not how he has to be. It doesn't mean anything, right? That's fine. But that's not the air and aura that he gives off. He's not a masculine person in the mindset that you would think. And like he was like, well, it's masculine. And I think Chris said something really important in the after party was like his definition of masculine and Kirsten's definition might be different because he's thinking masculine, like, oh, do you want me to beat somebody up for you? And it's like, that wouldn't, I mean, I'm not saying that isn't that's aggressive, but I don't know if that's masculine. And I think he just doesn't come off masculine. Like the quips of going back and forth with Kirsten and being sassy in his response and jumping down her throat a little bit, that to me are very feminine traits personally. So that's why I don't think Shaq is masculine. But, Kirsten doesn't think he's masculine because he don't be doing stuff with his hands. He don't be building. He don't be putting stuff together. So to her, for him to be masculine, he got to come and help her with her groceries. Like, oh, I bought groceries. I have 10 bags. Take one trip with 10 bags. That to Kirsten is masculine, which is perfectly fine, But if he don't come, he doesn't help her, or he takes more than one trip, now he's not so masculine. And I kind of feel her on that, but I'm saying like that's her definition. So they need to come up with that, what her definition is, and he needs to understand that before maybe being so offended that he's not fighting people and she doesn't think it's masculine, because I don't think that was her definition. And then I also need Kirsten to stop talking about her daddy like he didn't dip on her family when she was 8. Baby girl, you're 32. 20 plus years since your father left your mother. Not saying he wasn't in your life, not saying he wasn't masculine and didn't do things, but he wasn't like this family man in which he took care of y'all family as a unit. And you saw your parents in a marriage, right? After 8 years. So I don't know. I think she has to let that go and view it from a different viewpoint. Oh my God, Clint and Gina trying to be sexual and asking those questions was very awkward. Oh, using the brushes on each other, doing all that. It's just very awkward. Honestly, I don't want to see him anymore. I wish Gina would have made a decision day after he called her fat, or what she felt was being called fat, whatever it was, because done. Like I said, Shaq is very gaslighty. I'm not really a fan of him anymore. When the producers asked Shaq if he was happy in his marriage, this is exactly what I mean by he's very calculated. They said, "Are you happy?" He goes, "I'm grateful and I'm overjoyed to be married." What does overjoyed mean? If I was the producer, I'd have been like, "Shaq, what does overjoyed mean? Can you define overjoyed? And how is it any different than being happy? Why don't you just say, I came into this wanting to be married, and I'm married, and being married is something that I want. So I'm happy about that. However, this relationship hasn't been going in the manner in which I thought it would. So no, I'm not exactly happy, but I think we can get there, or I hope we get there. Something along those lines. But going in this grateful, overjoyed circle, like, let's just not do that ever again. So then the men went, they had like a little boys outing and a girls outing. So the men went to go hit baseballs and the girls went to go take a drinks making class. And Clint could not hit a baseball. And honestly, I don't know why that was expected. To me, I was like, Clint's not going to be able to hit this baseball. There's no way. He just seems very unathletic. Like, I know he can sail and all that stuff, but he just doesn't seem like somebody that has hand-eye coordination, that's very athletic. He just doesn't seem like that person. No. So it was just funny to me. But he seems like he would have told people that he played baseball, but he didn't. So I'm not saying that he did, but he seems like he's like, oh yeah, I played years of baseball, and then would go there and couldn't hit the ball. But that didn't happen. Luckily, he didn't make that up. And the girls, you know, like I said, they went to a drinks making class, and Nicole was talking about how she feels, and she wishes that, you know, Chris would lean into her a little bit more to kind of ask her and draw out what's wrong when he sees her like looking sad and stuff, because he said usually she just doesn't say anything. He just is like, oh, okay, I'll leave you, we'll talk later or whatever, which I think is a good response by Chris. But if she wants something different, he's also not a mind reader, and Nicole does have to let him know, like, hey, if you see me looking sad, if you see me maybe are like, hey, I don't want to talk about it right now, ask me again. Make sure that's really what I want, because sometimes I feel like I'm being a burden, so I don't want to burden you. But if, you know, if you ask again or say, hey, this won't burden me, or hey, then I'll, you know, release. So I just think that Nicole needs to be a little bit more clear and communicate that to Chris. Like, I don't think that's a problem. I think that's something that can be, you know, fixed quite easily. And then Jasmine talks about how she doesn't want to ask Eris any tough questions because she's actually afraid of what he might say, and she might not like the answer. And she started breaking down in tears, and it's sad. But at the same time, it's like, girl, yeah, of course you're not going to like his answer because he's not attracted to you and he doesn't like you. Or, well, take that back. He does like you. I believe he likes her a lot. He's just not attracted to her. He likes who she is. He just doesn't like how she looks. It's kind of sad. Next episode, we have Devon Franklin as an expert coming through. I don't like him as an expert. I don't think he should be an expert. I don't think he should be there. No, I don't like experts like him for whatever reason. But you guys, tell me what you think, how you felt about this episode, how you feel about Dr. Pia. Like, how can we get this girl there full time? Like, this is what we need to do. How do we get that to happen? Please let me know in the comments what you think. If you want her there full time, who you think would be a better expert. Just like, comment, subscribe, share, tell me everything. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Thank you guys for supporting and watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.